Hello, I'm Richard Gisbert, and you're at The Listening Post. This week, the U.S. presidential campaign.
Do you think Reverend Wright loves America as much as you do?
And the triumph of trivia over substance. A Palestinian cameraman under Israeli fire in Gaza films his own death. The Guantanamo trials will be seen on TV by some. And a Bulgarian singing idol and her broken English. Welcome back. The Pennsylvania Democratic primary was another critical date on the U.S. presidential election calendar, and it got wall-to-wall coverage in the American news media. Going into the showdown between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, the U.S. news media came under heavy criticism, with one network in particular, ABC News, attracting the bulk of it because of the way it handled a televised debate between Obama and Clinton. Our starting point this week, the coverage of Pennsylvania. Was ABC just out to get ratings, or was it out to get the candidate?
The American people don't quit, and they deserve a president who doesn't quit either.
When Hillary Clinton won the Pennsylvania primary, thus prolonging the dominant story of this election campaign, her battle with Barack Obama, she did the traditional thing, thanking her supporters. She might have added a news organization to that list, ABC, which hosted the only televised debate of the Pennsylvania campaign.
The candidates await. Charles Gibson and George Stephanopoulos.
Good evening and welcome.
And provoked an extraordinarily critical response from viewers. It wasn't just that ABC's moderators directed a disproportionate number of questions Obama's way, it was the kind of questions they were asking.
If you knew he got rough in sermons, why did it take you more than a year to publicly disassociate yourself from his remarks?
Charlie, I've discussed this extensively.
You said they get bitter, and they cling to guns, or they cling to their religion.
And we're having members of the public ask.
Senator Obama, I have a question, and I want to know if you believe in the American flag.
I think it was a travesty. I think it was an abject failure of journalism. It was just a carnival of minutia, a carnival of idiocy.
Do you think Reverend Wright loves America as much as you do?
I mean, there's just nothing there, and it was so clearly a desperate attempt to generate ratings, to generate headlines the next day. It was despicable, actually, and I think that it sets a terrible precedent for what this campaign is going to look like down the stretch.
Almost the entire first hour consisted of so-called character questions. There was nothing on Iraq, the economy, or other substantive issues.
By most independent accounts, Senator Obama has been treated with kid gloves by the American media throughout much of the campaign. Now that they've been called on that, largely by Senator Obama's opponent, Senator Clinton, they're now responding and attempting to show how balanced they can be by going on the attack against Senator Obama.
Mr. Stephanopoulos defended his questions by saying to Barack Obama, quote, if you get the nomination, you'll have to beat back these distractions. Distractions, such as more than 45 minutes worth before a single issue question. Instead, until the 18th question of the night, rehashes of Clinton's Bosnia trip, the Reverend Wright's patriotism, the Reverend Wright's love of America. ABC asking not a single question about Afghanistan or Pakistan, but abdicating journalistic decision-making of its own to take dictation, literally, from Sean Hannity.
How could you be president and be friendly with a terrorist?
Sean Hannity is one of the loudest voices on the pro-Republican Fox News, a channel that has been criticized for bashing Barack Obama. The day before the debate, ABC's George Stephanopoulos appeared on Hannity's radio show.
There are two questions that I don't think anybody has asked Barack Obama, and I don't know if this is going to be on your list tomorrow. His association with Bill Ayers, the unrepentant terrorist from the Weather Underground. Is that a question you might ask?
Well, I'm taking notes right now.
Let me see if I can help you. You want any more questions?
Yeah, keep going.
There is a well-worn path by which the most extremist fringe notions on the right wing move slowly but surely from the margins of American discourse right into the very heart, and then they end up driving campaign discourse. And it's a dysfunctional media dynamic that Fox has played this crucial role in, and it's truly destructive to American democracy.
I watched this debate, and by the way, all credit finally to ABC News and George Stephanopoulos and Charlie Gibson, because they asked him very tough questions. Finally, the media asked him about Bill Ayers, which we have been pointing out. He gave a pathetically weak answer.
There are millions of people who don't watch Fox News, who get furious when they do watch it. The problem is not just the people who watch Fox News. The bigger problem is that Fox News forces issues into the mainstream media in the United States. And we've seen it. We've seen it over and over again. So we must make clear they are not legitimate.
ABC took a pounding in the blogosphere over the debate and reported more than 10,000 messages on its own website, most of them critical. To ABC's credit, the channel's flagship newscast, World News, did a story about the reaction.
ABC News has heard from thousands of angry viewers today. One said, "This so-called debate will be shown to my communication students as an example of what shoddy journalism looks like."
And viewers complained about one of the moderators in particular. George Stephanopoulos, who put many of the questions to Obama, knows Hillary Clinton well. He used to work for her husband. Now he hosts This Week, ABC's Sunday political show. His main competition, NBC's Meet the Press, is hosted by another former Politico, Tim Russert.
Timothy Russert on NBC and George Stephanopoulos on ABC both were top political operatives before they moved across the aisle, if you will, into the warm embrace of big media. But what we find is that the people who are allowed to access the huge audiences that we have in the network media here in the United States, by and large, are people who go back and forth across the aisle, moving in between what I call this crucial but very corrupt nexus of big politics and big media.
And there is no bigger, more important political story right now for big media to cover than the 2008 U.S. presidential election. Our Global Village Voices now on the coverage of the U.S. presidential vote.
ABC News defended their choice of questions by basically saying, well, these are questions and issues the Republicans are going to raise in the fall against the Democrat nominee, so why not just get them out in the open right now? The only problem is when you focus half of a debate, 45 whole minutes, on these issues and these Republican attacks, then you're essentially giving free airtime to the Republicans. And at that point, you cease to be an objective press and start becoming the voice of Republican attacks.
The mainstream media took this little rant that Obama had about small-town Americans being bitter and clinging to their religion and guns. But the fact of the matter is, all Americans are bitter. But I'll tell you what, Hillary Clinton, John McCain, and Barack Obama don't represent the average worker and haven't for many, many years. There's only a few people that do. One of those is Ron Paul. People talk about him like he's still not even in the race. He is still running for president, last time I checked. So it'd be nice to have the American media step up for a change and do the right thing. Otherwise, they might be the next one without a job.
Opinion polls since Barack Obama's comments about bitter communities in the economically betrayed small towns of the American Rust Belt suggest that working-class voters in Pennsylvania have not taken the idea of bitterness nearly as negatively as the New York media told them they should, which may indicate they appreciate a frank recognition of their dire economic circumstances, or at least they don't find it any more condescending than the salt-of-the-earth pablum they have to endure from every other politician. Back to you, Richard.
And if you have issues with the media and the way they cover the news, we need to know about it. Email us at listeningpost@aljazeera.net. Come up with a smart take on the media, and we'll find a way to get you on the air as one of our Global Village Voices. Time now for some quick hits from the world of media. Listening Post News Bites. The U.S. military says it plans to televise trials of the prisoners held at Guantanamo Bay, but to a very limited American audience. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and 5 other men are expected to be the first Guantanamo prisoners tried. They're alleged to have been directly involved in the 9/11 attacks. The Pentagon says the trials will be televised through closed-circuit television to select military bases so that the families of 9/11 victims can see that justice is being served. The trial dates have yet to be set, even though the first prisoners were taken to Guantanamo more than 6 years ago. The message from Moscow is that if gossip reaches the newsstand, especially rumors about President Putin, journalists could quickly find themselves out of business. The Moskovsky Korrespondent newspaper published a piece saying that President Vladimir Putin planned to divorce his wife Ludmila and marry a 24-year-old Olympic gymnast from Uzbekistan. Within days, the paper had suspended publication, and although its owner blamed the shutdown on cost issues, his deputy editor said it was a case of the authorities not being ready to have the private lives of leaders scrutinized. The story was published around the world, but most Russian media toe the line on what the Kremlin considers to be off-limits. The French newspaper of record, Le Monde, has failed to publish twice this month because of labor troubles. Le Monde wants to cut up to 130 jobs, and its workers have responded with 2 one-day strikes. Newspapers in France, like many around the world, are struggling despite big government subsidies and breaks on their taxes. The work stoppages are only the second in Le Monde's 64-year history. Saved by Twitter. That's how a 29-year-old American journalism student describes his release from an Egyptian jail. James Buck says he was researching a story on Egyptian bloggers and filming a protest when he was nabbed by police in the Nile Delta. They took his camera but not his phone, so Buck texted an 8-letter message saying, "Arrested," which was then sent through Twitter, the micro-blogging medium, and relayed to friends in the U.S. and Egypt. They contacted the U.S. Embassy and the news media, and within hours, Buck was released, although his Egyptian interpreter remained in custody. Coming up after the break, killed by an Israeli shell, a cameraman's eye view of Gaza.